Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have all you focused learners with us today. Okay, so we're going to unpack something that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a Bollywood blockbuster script, but it's actually a very real, honestly kind of bizarre phenomenon sweeping across India right now. We're talking about mobile tower love protests. Yep, you heard me right. People are literally scaling massive telecom towers to protest their love lives. It's dramatic, it's super dangerous, and as we're going to see, especially when we look at one married woman from UP who just wanted to be with her lover, it actually reveals a ton about our society, our relationships, and how far we'll actually go to be heard in this hyper-connected world. So I've got to ask, what's the most extreme thing you've ever done for love? Maybe you wrote a super embarrassing poem back in high school, or, I don't know, maybe you flew across the country for somebody. Hold on to that thought for a second, because I can practically guarantee that whatever you just thought of, it probably doesn't involve scaling a 100-foot metal structure in the absolute blazing sun just to demand a relationship status update.
Right, so let's dive into Hathras, Uttar Pradesh. Meet Pooja. She's a 30-year-old woman who'd been married to her husband for about 2 years, living in a place called Barmani village. But Pooja she was deeply unhappy in her marriage. She had actually fallen in love with another man, Jaya Prakash, who lived in a nearby village. So she's desperately seeking a way out, dealing with the massive, crushing pressure of domestic expectations. And she makes a really desperate choice. One Tuesday afternoon, she walks right out of her in-laws' home and decides that the only way to finally be heard is to be seen by literally everyone.
So, right after she leaves the house that afternoon, she finds a mobile tower on Lutskan Road and just climbs straight to the very top. I mean, just imagine the scorching heat up there. Down below, the emergency response was massive. Local police, the fire brigade, they all rushed to the scene. They were actually so terrified she might jump that they set up an entire jumping floor right at the base of the tower. This whole high-tension standoff dragged on for 3 grueling hours. Finally, the cops figured out what she wanted and brought her lover, Jaya Prakash, right to the scene. And it was only after she actually spoke with him on the phone and physically saw him down there that Pooja finally agreed to come down safely.
Now, the media was super quick to pick up on just how cinematic this whole spectacle was. The Times of India actually hit the nail on the head, writing, "More than 50 years after Sholay was released, its impact can still be felt. In a role reversal, a 20-year-old woman climbed a mobile tower." They're of course referencing that classic movie Sholay, where the character Viru famously climbs a water tank for love. The press basically took this local emergency and framed it as this grand modern-day cinematic narrative, especially noting how the traditional roles are reversing now.
But here is the absolute crucial point. Pooja's story, it is not just some wacky, isolated local news blip. Just look at the extremes here. On one side, we have Pooja in UP, a 30-year-old married woman scaling a tower, demanding an exit from her marriage so she can be with her lover. And then, completely separately over in Gopalganj, Bihar, a 20-year-old named Arpita climbed a tower. She flat out refused to come down until the police released her boyfriend, Pawan, who they'd actually detained after her family filed a kidnapping complaint. She literally made the cops bring him to the base of the tower in handcuffs before she climbed down. Crazy, right? But it really proves that this isn't a one-off. It's a genuine escalating pattern.
Section 1. A bizarre national trend. Dil Tuta Tower Ched Gaya. Actually, that subtitle translates roughly to Heartbroken Climbed a Tower. And wow, is it accurate. We're shifting from those individual stories to a massive national trend. A recent report from Republic World laid out this whole epidemic, and the incidents are just staggering. Check this out. A 23-year-old guy in UP stayed up on a tower for 7 solid hours after his cousin rejected him. Another guy in Chhattisgarh basically held a whole town emotionally hostage from 40 feet up over rejection. And a husband climbed a tower at his in-laws' house demanding his wife come back to him. Another man in Greater Noida scaled a highly dangerous high-tension power tower. And get this, in one of the most absurd cases from early 2025, a guy climbed a tower demanding to marry his online girlfriend, who turned out to be completely fake. No way, right? It really highlights just how widespread this wild strategy of turning a private dispute into a public hostage negotiation has become.
There's a really deep, kind of heartbreaking irony here. The telecom tower, literally the very piece of infrastructure we designed to keep us all connected to the world, suddenly becomes this dramatic stage for the people who feel the absolutely most disconnected in their personal lives. Just think about the psychology of it for a second. We live in this hyper-connected world, right? It is so easy to feel ignored or invisible, but climbing 100 feet into the air, well, that guarantees visibility. It completely forces the local authorities, your family, and, thanks to social media, thousands of total strangers to stop what they're doing and pay attention to your pain.
Section 2. The Roots of Infidelity. Beyond the Viral Spectacle.
So wait, there's actually a lot more to this than just viral memes. We really need to look at the serious, underlying sociological and psychological roots driving this extreme behavior. Why are so many relationships hitting this absolute breaking point of infidelity and public desperation? To really understand that, we have to look at the clinical data, specifically peer-reviewed science regarding extramarital affairs, or EMA, from the Acta Scientific Women's Health Journal. This data is going to help us figure out the immense emotional distress pushing people like Pooja to risk their lives on a cell tower.
50%. That is a massive number. According to Kinsey data cited right in that journal, 50% of married men globally and 25% of married women have had at least one extramarital affair during their lives. Let that sink in. So while climbing a tower is obviously this wild, extreme outlier, the relationship dissatisfaction and the infidelity driving that action, that's actually a massive, everyday societal reality.
Now, the journal breaks down the main drivers of these affairs into three big pillars. First up, you've got social and digital factors. Our modern world just offers this massive excess of workplace options, online dating, and social media platforms that, frankly, make affairs way more accessible than ever before. Then, the second pillar is emotional and sexual factors. We're talking unmet emotional needs, a lack of sexual satisfaction, or just a general desire for variety. And third, and this is perhaps the most serious one, domestic pressures. Things like a severe lack of communication, domestic violence, and gender-based violence. When you lay it all out like this, it's pretty easy to see how these deep-rooted, painful issues connect directly back to the emotional distress of the tower climbers we've been talking about.
But we also really need to talk about the hidden, severe health impacts this causes, especially for Indian women. The journal points out some pretty sobering facts. Women involved in EMA actually have a significantly higher risk for heart disease compared to women who aren't. It leads to severe mental distress and just total home instability. On top of that, it increases exposure to unsafe sex and STDs. And most tragically, the data highlights a direct, proven link showing that abusive husbands are significantly more likely to have extramarital affairs, which in turn strongly predicts physical or sexual abuse against the wife. So the physical and mental toll of these relationship breakdowns, it's just incredibly high.
Okay, so what do we do about this? How do we actually address these root problems before they escalate into a literal public crisis on top of a 100-foot tower? Well, the medical journal lays out a pretty clear conclusion. On a personal level, the solution requires real, open, completely honest communication between couples about their sexual and emotional needs. But zooming out to a broader societal level, it absolutely requires the socioeconomic empowerment of women. We literally have to change the culturally rooted gender dynamics that end up trapping people in these unbearable situations to begin with.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. When love loses its signal, is climbing higher the only way to be heard? We've unpacked the literal high-wire acts of desperate lovers today, alongside the very heavy, very real metaphorical realities of marriage, infidelity, and massive societal pressure. It's this incredibly complex web of human emotion, and it's playing out in literally the most public way imaginable. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, Focus Learners. Keep asking those tough questions, keep looking deeper into the stories around us, and I will see you next time.